Okay, what's up people? My name's Margaret and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing another video about Instacart. I made a video last week or like a week and a half ago about Instacart and it had the same general title as this video, but I specified in that title that the video would be me reading Instacart's mentions on Twitter. And that's pretty much exactly what, that's literally what the video is. I'm reading Instacart's mentions on Twitter. And I do stand by the statement that those tweets are the truth about Instacart. Those tweets from actual customers are the truth about what you can expect when you sign up to receive personal grocery delivery from Instacart. And I, personally, in my opinion, I think that's incredibly meaningful because when you're dealing with the service industry, one of the most important aspects of that service is the customer's experience. So if the customer has a bad experience, that reflects accordingly on the company and the service that they're providing. So yeah, those tweets are the raw truths, in my opinion, from people with no other agenda other than the fact that they literally just want what they paid for, which is fresh grocery delivery on time or at least in a timely manner. So yeah, I stand by what I said in the last video. I stand by that title, and that's what I have to say about that. Now, when I originally filmed that video, there was at least an hour of additional footage where I talked about the mistreatment of shoppers by Instacart, all of the shady moves that Instacart has pulled in the past couple years involving stealing tips, using customers' tips to supplement shoppers' wages, aka tip theft. It's just a different form of tip theft. Ambiguous changes to their payment structure, confusing wording in their customers' fees, and just a bunch of other reasons why shoppers are getting increasingly frustrated with the company and why they don't want to accept orders anymore, and just basically the entire background of why bad experiences with Instacart are happening in the first place. So I was talking for about an hour about all of that kind of stuff, but I wanted to make the video a tolerable amount of time for somebody to watch. So in editing, I ended up cutting all of that out and made the video pretty much just me reading Instacart's mentions on Twitter. And it ended up sounding like I was blaming shoppers for all of the bad experiences that are happening with Instacart, which I want to make clear right now is not the case at all. And I realize now that I did not articulate that as well as I wanted to. I thought that maybe it would be clear from some of the replies I was reading about how Instacart reduced shoppers' pay by at least 40% and eliminated incentives towards quality and stuff like that. I thought that would make it clear that it was not the shopper's fault, that it was Instacart's fault, but it did not come across that way. So I wanted to make this video to clarify that it is the company itself that is the problem and why that is the case. So I guess I'll just give a little bit of background on my experience with Instacart, or I guess my experience with Instacart. I did used to be an Instacart shopper. I started in March 2018, so almost 2 years ago now. I started because I was in school and I really just needed some flexibility in my schedule that would give me extra time to study when I needed it, and that would allow me to take time off for when I was in full-time clinicals. But if I still wanted to pick up a shift in the evening or on the weekends or something, I would be able to do that. I was also getting really frustrated with what I was being paid hourly at my part-time job when I know what I'm capable of and I knew that I could hustle and make so much more in a smaller amount of time. I just knew I was capable of more. And it was just so infuriating to me that I was really good at my job. I put in the extra effort and I took on additional responsibilities, but I was still being paid the same as my coworkers. And even if I wasn't being paid the same as them, I was only making like 50 cents more per hour, which honestly, like to me, it was just nothing. And it really made me feel like I just didn't feel like my time and effort was being valued or appreciated. So I started looking for other ways to make money, and I moved on to what seemed like it was the perfect solution to my problem, which was Instacart. I had thought about doing Uber just to make some like extra money on the side in addition to my part-time job, but as a woman, as a woman driving strangers in my car alone, especially driving male strangers and being alone in the car with them for an unspecified amount of time, that just didn't make me feel comfortable. It was like a vulnerable thing for me. So I just wasn't really into doing that. So when I discovered Instacart, it seemed like the perfect opportunity for me. I had previously worked at different grocery stores in my area doing marketing and promotion work, so I was already familiar with the layouts of a bunch of different grocery stores and in different areas too. So I knew my way around the stores, I knew where to find a bunch of different products, and I also already knew how to pick out like good quality produce and meats. And I mean, I'm a perfectionist, so I always put a lot of time and effort into making sure that I get the best possible produce that I can find. So yeah, it seemed like it was a really good opportunity for me. Like I had the freedom to pick when I wanted to work, I could take time off when I needed it, and it was something that I knew that I would be good at. So yeah, the first few months working for Instacart were great. When I first started, they were doing a commission-based payment structure. So you were getting paid 40 cents per item in an order, and then you would be paid like a flat rate delivery commission, but that rate would change every day of the week depending on how busy that day would be. So Sundays, for example, would be super busy, so the delivery commission would be, when I started, it was $10. After a while, it dropped down to $5 per delivery. And then on less busy days, like Wednesdays or Thursdays or something, the delivery commission rate would be like $3.30 maybe. So yeah, and that would change from zone to zone, and the delivery commission, it was the same for every order, regardless of if you were driving 2 miles from the store to the customer or half a mile or 8 miles, it was always that delivery commission rate. So I liked it. It was the 40 cents per item and then the delivery commission for each order. So there was reliability, there was predictability. When an order came in, you could kind of estimate how much you would be paid for that order and kind of determine for yourself if it was worth your time and effort. And there were other like shopper bumps that you could earn in addition to those two things. So if you shopped at Costco, you would get an additional $3 shopper bump, or like a club bump for shopping at a club store. If an order rang up to over $200 at the register, you would get a $10 shopper bump added to your compensation, and an additional $10 shopper bump for each $100 over $200. So if the order rang up to $300 at the register, you would get two $10 shopper bumps. At least to my memory, that's what I remember. If you completed a certain amount of shops by the end of the week and you accepted a certain amount of shops that were offered to you, and all of the shops that you completed were rated 5 stars, you would also get a $100 like 5-star bonus for that week, which I thought was great. I mean, that right there was incentive to accept orders because you have to complete a certain amount, and there was incentive to provide the best possible service that you could provide for that 5-star rating, because you knew if you got all 5 stars, it would be acknowledged at the end of the week with that $100 bonus. And it kind of helped if you had some customers that week that just didn't give a good tip, or they didn't tip at all or something, that extra $100 would kind of balance it out. So I thought this was a great payment structure. I loved all the little shopper bumps. The $100 bonus was great. And it was clear, like you knew how you were being paid, what you were being paid for, why you were being paid, what you were being paid. I liked it. In my eyes, there were only two downsides to that payment structure. The first one being that you were only paid per item and not per unit. So if someone ordered 5 cases of water and 5 cases of pop, that order would show as being only 2 items, but 10 units. So you would only get paid 80 cents for the items in that order, when in reality, lugging around 5 cases of water and 5 cases of pop is a lot of work. And I thought that you should at least get paid per unit for those types of orders. So that was my first issue, was like the low paying small orders, especially if there was a lot of work that went into them. The second downside was that you didn't know ahead of time if the customer had left a tip on the order or not, which honestly, like, it wasn't even that's not even that big of a deal. I think it was kind of annoying if it was a really large order and you put a lot of work into it, and at the end, the customer didn't tip you, and you could have known that ahead of time before even accepting the order. But you know, that's just the way that life works. If you're a server in a restaurant, you don't know ahead of time if your table is going to tip you or not, and you just provide the best possible service that you can provide, and you hope that it pays off in the end. And there's just always going to be those people who don't tip. You know, I have my own thoughts about those kinds of people, but you know, hopefully your hard work would pay off. And if it didn't pay off, there was at least the possibility of that $100 bonus at the end of the week. That would kind of make up for the customers that didn't tip you or that tipped you poorly. But yeah, those were the only two downsides, in my opinion. So at that point in time, I was just working as hard as I could, putting in whatever hours that I possibly could. I knew that I had a full-time clinical coming up in the summer and I would need to take time off. So I was just, you know, minding my own business, trying to make as much money as I could before I would have to take that time off. So yeah, I wasn't really like involved in the shopper community at the time. I didn't really know what was going on between Instacart and its shoppers or its customers or anything like that. As far as I understood it, other like more experienced shoppers that had been doing Instacart for a longer time than I had, they had a couple of frustrations with the company. And from what I understood, it was also the like low paying small orders, which that was one of the things that annoyed me too. And then the second one was that you couldn't see a customer's address ahead of time. So before accepting you didn't know until you accepted an order where you would be delivering to. So for a lot of shoppers, that was like a safety concern. So at that point in time, those were the two things that I understood other shoppers were frustrated about: the low paying small orders and not being able to see customers' address before accepting an order. So like I said, I wasn't really involved in the shopper community at that time. I knew that there was a strike happening in October of 2018, but I didn't really know what it was for. I was still relatively new at the time. I had taken time off for full-time clinicals and I was dealing with a busy semester in school. So, you know, I was minding my own business. I scheduled hours when I could, I worked them, and I was just focused on making money and getting good grades in school. So yeah, I really didn't know what was going on at the time or why there was a strike or anything. So a month later, in November 2018, I don't know if it was in response to the strike or not, but Instacart announced that it was changing its payment structure in the interest of being more transparent with its shoppers. So you could now see if the customer tipped you ahead of time, you could see the customer's address ahead of time, where you would be delivering to, and there would now be a payment per order or batch that would pay at least a minimum of $10, which was supposed to fix the issue with the low-paying small orders. They also changed their delivery compensation. So instead of that like flat commission per delivery, they changed it to a mileage reimbursement where you would get paid 60 cents per mile from store to customer, which I guess was supposed to make it more fair that a 2-mile delivery wouldn't pay the same as an 8-mile delivery or a half-mile delivery. So initially, this sounded great. It seemed like it was going to be a change for the better. But the new transparency with shoppers that Instacart was boasting about was not exactly all that it was cracked up to be. So pretty soon after that payment structure change, I started to realize, and a lot of other shoppers started to realize, some of the really sneaky, shady stuff that Instacart was trying to pull with their new, like, algorithm-based payment structure. And this is when I started to get involved with the shopper community. This is when I started to go on Twitter to see what other people were saying about Instacart and to see if other people were catching on to what I was catching on to. So first of all, Instacart's statement about being more transparent with their shoppers about how they were being compensated was a total lie. With the previous commission-based payment structure, there was a predictability where shoppers knew how much they could at least estimate how much they would be paid per order, and they knew why they were being paid that. With the new algorithm that stated a $10 minimum per batch, I don't know if other shoppers were hoping this, but I was hoping that that would mean that you could expect that minimum per order and then an additional compensation depending on what store you were shopping at, how big the order was, how many items, units, how much effort went into it, how heavy it was, that kind of a thing. So I was hoping that it would kind of be a combination of the commission-based structure, but just with a $10 minimum set in place for those smaller orders, in order for those small orders to be worth the time and the effort and the gas and miles on my car. So this is where it starts to get shady. So after this payment structure change, shoppers started to notice that Instacart was using customers' tips to supplement shoppers' wages. So in other words, customers' tips were counting towards that $10 minimum instead of being in addition to that $10 minimum. So the bigger the tip from the customer, the less Instacart would pay for a batch. So basically, if a customer tipped you $7 ahead of time, Instacart would pay 60 cents per mile for the delivery, and then whatever was left to make up that difference or to get to a $10 minimum, that would be the batch incentive to shop the batch. So let's say the delivery is 3 miles from the store to the customer. Instacart will pay $1.80 for the delivery, and then the rest of that to make up that total of a $10 minimum, that will be the batch incentive. So in this specific example, Instacart will pay you $1.20 batch incentive, or $1.20 is your payment for shopping the batch. Now, if for the same exact order, the customer only tipped you $4 ahead of time, Instacart would still pay you the 60 cents per mile, so they would still pay $1.80 for the delivery, but now they would have to pay more to make up that difference to get to the $10 minimum. So the batch incentive would change from $1.20 to $4.20 in order to make that order add up to a $10 minimum. For anyone who doesn't understand what this means, this is a form of tip theft. Instacart was literally stealing customers' tips to supplement their compensation to shoppers towards the $10 minimum. The tip wasn't being treated as extra on top of the $10 minimum. The company was just straight up using customers' tips to pay workers' wages, cheating both the customer and the shopper. And it wasn't until they got caught paying only 80 cents to a shopper, that's including the batch incentive and the mileage reimbursement, only 80 cents to the shopper, that they were basically forced to publicly apologize because of all of the bad press and the negative publicity that they were getting when that came out. So in February 2019, a couple months after that initial payment structure change, Instacart released a public apology, and they stated that they would be paying back what they owed to their shoppers that had been subsidized by customers' tips since that payment structure change. And they said that they would be changing or fixing the glitch in the system that caused all of that to happen in the first place. And they would be paying shoppers fairly from that point on. Yeah. At this point, they changed their payment structure again, this time promising that Instacart would pay a minimum of $7 to $10 per batch. And the customer tip would now always be in addition to that minimum. They also added a 5-star bonus, so you would now get an additional $3 for every 5-star rating. And they also added an additional bump for heavy orders. So if an order weighed at least 48 pounds, I want to say, they would pay you an additional little bump. So it wasn't all of the other shopper bumps that we used to get, and it wasn't that $100 bonus at the end of the week for all 5-star ratings. But, you know, at least it was something. And at least Instacart got caught. Like, they were called out publicly on their shadiness, and they had to, you know, publicly apologize, and they had to pay us back everything that they owed us, and they would be paying us fairly from here on out. Like, they got caught. So I thought that things would be different from that point forward. But Instacart just can't get it right with their shoppers. After they got caught in February and stated Instacart would now pay a $7 to $10 minimum per batch, pretty much every batch that comes through now only offers between $7 to $9. And that's regardless of what store it's at, how many items or units it is, how much effort goes into it. If it's a lot of produce, which takes a lot of effort to pick nice produce, it didn't matter. Every batch now was just offering between $7 and $9. And a lot of the times it would be on the low end of that range. A 10-item order and a 38-item order would now have a very similar payout from Instacart, which would be somewhere in that like $7 to $9 range, with no indication how that payout was determined. And that minimum still includes the per mileage compensation. So in reality, you are being paid less than $7 to shop pretty much every single order. That range that they state of a $7 to $10 minimum is basically just a way to make it sound better than flat out saying that they're only paying $7 for every single batch now. There is still absolutely zero clarity to shoppers as to what they are being paid for. All we know now is that it'll be a $7 minimum regardless of the time or effort spent on the batch, and that if we get a 5-star rating, if the customer even rates us at all, it'll be a $3 bonus. Another change that Instacart made at this time was that they changed the tip default amount from 10% to 5%, which is a ridiculously low amount to tip a shopper who is literally driving to the store for you, shopping your entire order for you, shopping all of your groceries for you, communicating with you throughout that shop if you need any for any replacements for things that may be out of stock, or maybe if you want to refund an item, or if you need anything extra. And then if it's an Aldi or a Costco order, you have to bag or, pack up all that stuff on your own. Even if it's not an Aldi's or Costco, I would sometimes rebag orders from like Jewel or Mariano's just because they were so bad at bagging them themselves. Pack up your car, drive to the shopper's house or drive to the customer's house and deliver it to their front door. For 5%, I guarantee you would want more than 5% if you were doing all of that for somebody, and especially if you were providing excellent service. Anyways, so a couple of months after that change to the payment structure, Instacart was offering peak boosts. So if you put yourself on the schedule for like 3 to 5, Instacart would offer like peak boosts during certain like hours. So if they offered a peak boost of $1 between 3 to 4, every order that you accept between those times, those orders would have an additional $1 added to your compensation. And sometimes the peak boosts would be like a $5 peak boost or $7 peak boost. That was the highest I ever saw. Those didn't really last a long time. I only saw those for a couple of months, and I don't think I saw any more of those after like May of 2019. So that didn't really last very long either. Another thing that shoppers noticed at that time was that the batches that Instacart offered would now include 2 orders or 3 orders. They would be like double or triple batches, but they would still pay that $7 minimum. So yeah, with Instacart's sneaky wording, they said that they would pay a $7 to $10 minimum per batch, not order. And then they started lumping multiple orders into a single batch. So now, instead of going to the store, shopping for a person's order and delivering it to them, you are now driving to the store, shopping for 2 or 3 different people at the same time, communicating to all of them at the same time, making sure that all of their items stay separated in the cart and that you keep track of them when you're packing them into your car and going through checkout, all of that, and then you deliver to each individual person, all for $7. And another thing was that you can't see how much each customer tipped individually on those like double or triple orders. You could just see how much the tip amount was total. So a lot of times what I found that Instacart was doing was that they would, in a double order, they would put a high tipping order with a non-tipping order. So it would kind of fool you into delivering to somebody who didn't end up tipping you at all. So shoppers have gotten a lot more picky about which batches they will accept, if they're worth the time and the effort and the gas and miles on their car. And most of the time, $7 for like a medium to large order or multiple orders at the same time with only a 5% tip on it, it's not worth it. It like, honestly, a 5% tip is pretty much never worth it. So the problem here is primarily Instacart for offering such poor compensation for their batches, regardless of time and effort involved. And the second problem is the customers who tip poorly or who don't tip at all, which is basically showing zero appreciation for the service that shoppers are providing. So the shoppers who provide excellent service, who are good at what they do, they pick out quality produce, they go the extra mile, and they know their worth, they do not accept those batches. And now, if we know a customer doesn't tip ahead of time, because we've delivered to them before, or we see on the order that they haven't left a tip, those addresses are going on our do not deliver lists. So if you don't put a tip on your order right away, your batch is getting rejected by any shopper who knows their worth and knows that the quality and service that they provide is worth more than that. If we notice your address is on our do not deliver list, your batch is getting rejected. Shoppers have to be extremely picky now in order to remain profitable while working on the Instacart platform. If Instacart is only offering $7 for any order over 20 items, which probably would have paid more with the previous payment structure, a good shopper is most likely rejecting that. If Instacart lumps multiple orders into a batch that only pays $7, yes, we will be rejecting that too. But it's not as easy as it sounds to just reject a batch. When a batch is offered to you, you have 4 minutes to accept that batch. So in order to reject it, you have to wait out that entire 4 minutes until it times out, and then the batch is rejected. I don't know if they still do this because I don't work for Instacart anymore, but you used to be offered the same order twice in a row. So if you rejected it once, they would then offer it to you one more time, and you would have to wait out that 4 minutes again in order to reject it the second time. So that's a lot of time wasted right there. And if the next shopper that it goes to or that it's offered to rejects the order as well, and they get offered it again and they reject it the second time, that's a lot of time wasted again right there. So if 5 shoppers in a row ignore your order, then that's like 20 to 40 wasted minutes right there that your order is just bouncing around from shopper to shopper to shopper. not getting shopped until eventually some random shopper who, you know, maybe they don't know their worth, or they just need some quick money, or they're new and they don't really know what they're doing, they'll accept the order and they'll shop it. And you know, you're not really sure what kind of quality you're going to get at that point, and your order is already going to be late. And honestly, at that point, $7 from Instacart and a 5% tip really isn't that much incentive to do a good job either. So whoever's going to pick up that order for the low tip and the low compensation that they're being offered, they're probably not going to put that much effort into it. So they're just going to shop the order, trying to get it done as quickly as possible, because Instacart is timing how fast you go. And also, the faster you shop and deliver, the more orders that you can get and the more money you'll be able to make. So shoppers are also now just more focused on speed than quality, because that's what Instacart has emphasized as being important. And yeah, so you've got your orders bouncing around from shopper to shopper until, who knows, some random person accepts it. They don't know what they're doing. They're just trying to get it done as fast as possible. And at that point, it's probably already late. And yeah, that is essentially how your order ends up being hours late and with unreliable quality. If Instacart just paid a fair compensation in the first place, that order would most likely get accepted right away by a good shopper who knows what their work is worth, and the order will get shopped and delivered in a timely manner, and ideally the shopper would get tipped adequately for the service that they provided. But Instacart just insists on ruining its relationship with shoppers and customers with its freaking shady practices throughout the years. In November 2019, shoppers went on strike again, fighting back against the 5% tip default, asking that it be changed back to the original 10% default. That was literally all they were asking for. And instead of responding to this, Instacart just stayed quiet, and then a week later announced that they would be eliminating the $3 bonus for a 5-star rating. They literally were eliminating incentives towards quality. So, like, what incentives do shoppers have left to want to do a good job? When I first started, there was incentive to not only accept batches, but there was also incentive to provide the best possible service and quality that you could, because there was the potential of that $100 weekly bonus for all 5-star ratings. Now, there's literally nothing. Even the potential of a measly $3 for a 5-star rating is gone, and the tip default remains at 5%. It's basically like, over the years, Instacart shoppers have just been continuously penalized and punished by the company, even if they consistently provided great quality and excellent service. It's just so bad on the Instacart platform now that a lot of the good shoppers have moved on to something else. A lot of the good ones are now shoppers on Dumpling, which I talked about in my previous video, and some of them have just moved on to other jobs. So what customers are left with are shoppers who aren't paid enough to care about providing quality, and I've even seen some shoppers say on social media that they will purposefully mess up on an order that offers like a really low tip. So if they see ahead of time that it's a bad tip, they'll purposefully do a good job on that. Or they'll purposefully do a bad job on that, which I personally think is ridiculous, but people say that they find some kind of joy in that. So yeah, that's what you're dealing with. Shoppers are really frustrated. Countless times they have expressed their issues to Instacart and asked for change, but Instacart just freaking refuses to listen to them and accept their feedback. I cannot tell you how many times after rejecting an order, a little window will pop up and ask you why you rejected that order, and I would type in because it was poor compensation, and if there was a poor tip or no tip, I would write that as well. I can't tell you how many times I did that, and I know that I'm not the only person that wrote that in and Has anything been done to change that? No. Shoppers have gone on strike. They have written open letters to the CEO of the company and to other people high up in the company. And literally nothing has changed. If anything, it's just gotten worse. The only time anything significant happened was when Instacart got publicly slammed on national networks for supplementing shoppers' wages with customers' tips. Which at that point, it just seemed like it was to like save face in the public eye. So yeah, it is not your shopper's fault that you had a bad experience with Instacart. It is Instacart's fault. They do not care about their shoppers, the actual people who made their platform what it is. And they definitely don't care about their customers either. That's pretty obvious by looking at their Twitter page and seeing how long it takes them to respond to people's issues with orders. And even when they do respond, it's like a copy and paste response. Like, they don't actually care. As long as they're making money, they're good. And like I said in my previous video, this is all public information. There are tons of articles out there about everything that I just talked about in this video. I'm not just some random person who's talking out of my butt. And even if I was, all of the articles out there are saying the exact same thing that I just talked about. So yeah, if you use Instacart, I would strongly urge you to help your shoppers take a stand against this shady company and delete Instacart. Delete the app. Don't use them anymore. Take your business elsewhere. Go vote with your dollar. And if you don't care and you're just gonna keep using the service anyways, for God's sakes, could you just leave a freaking reasonable tip for your shoppers? $2 for someone who drives to the store, shops for your groceries for you, communicates with you the whole time, provides good service and drives to your house and delivers those groceries to you. Like, that deserves more than $2. I tip my freaking pizza delivery drivers at least $2, and they're not even making the pizza for me. They're just delivering it. So please just consider what this service means to you and how much value it adds to your life, and show your shoppers how much you appreciate them. And if you want to tip in cash, or you are waiting until after your groceries are delivered to add in a tip, shoppers ask that you put in a custom tip of 22 cents beforehand, because that will notify them that you are going with either of those options, that you're going to tip in cash or put your tip on after the order's been delivered. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching this. I hope it wasn't too long. Please give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment down below letting me know your thoughts on Instacart. If you have any personal experiences with Instacart, or what you think about anything that I talked about in this video. I will be linking a lot of the articles in the description below, so if you want to check those out, those will be there for you to look at. And yeah, I hope this gives you some kind of insight as to what's been going on recently between Instacart and its shoppers. So please subscribe so you don't miss my next video. Not everything will be about Instacart, but this is just something that I wanted to speak on, and I feel like it should be out there. Sometimes people just don't like looking for articles or reading articles or whatever, and sometimes it's just easier to listen when it's in video form. So again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day or night whenever you're watching this, and I'll see you in my next video. Like, those tweets from actual customers are the truth about what you can expect when you sign up to receive with the previous algorithm, or not the algorithm. I was in school and so if someone ordered 5 cases of water and 5 cases of pop, that would show up as an order with 2 units and 10, wait, did I say units? Please give this video, please